Welcome, everybody, to the Federation of Neighborhoods. This is a community forum that we're holding on SPLOST 2020, Learn, Then Vote. And the Federation of Neighborhoods, for those who are not familiar with us, we present forums every month on issues that we think are of interest to the citizens of Athens-Clarke County. And so those things can vary quite a bit, but usually are things of local interest that tend to be either in the news or that are relevant, such as things coming up for election, just like we have tonight with SPLOST 2020. So our membership includes neighborhood associations, other community organizations, and individual members. And our forums are always free and open to the public. Please consider becoming an individual member or encouraging your neighborhood association or other community organization to join the Federation. And we can tell you more about how to make that happen if you're interested. So tonight's forum, as I mentioned, is focusing on the SPLOST 2020 program referendum, which will be voted on as part of the November 5th general election by Athens-Clarke County citizens. If you live outside of Winterville, this is the only item on the ballot. And so that could affect turnout, I would guess. I'm thinking that people in Winterville are going to be real excited to come vote, and I don't know about the rest of the county, so it'll be interesting to see what those numbers finally are. So we're going to start out with a few questions. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what their relationship is to SPLOST 2020. We have people here who have been involved in the Citizens Advisory Committee. We have people who are involved with different programs that are part of SPLOST 2020, or maybe they are a stakeholder in some other way that contributes to that. So I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves and talk a little bit more about that. And as always, I always forget, I'm Wendy Moore, who is the strange person sitting up here. I am a member of the Federation of Neighborhoods Board, and we have several board members here with us tonight, and you can recognize us by these lovely badges. So if you have some questions about the Federation of Neighborhoods, please ask us afterwards. We appreciate it. So, okay, let's get started. I'm going to start down way on the far end. And we have microphones. You guys can kind of pass back and forth and try not to spill each other's water, and we should be good.
Thank you. I was under the impression I was going to go last.
Oh no! Aren't you sad? I always start at the far end.
Okay, well, my name is Evan Mills. I'm here representing Advantage Behavioral Health Systems. And we have a proposal within the SPLOST process to construct a facility for individuals who find themselves homeless and experiencing mental illness and or substance abuse and or developmental disabilities. For those of you who aren't aware of Advantage Behavioral Health Systems, we are the safety net provider based in Athens-Clarke County. We serve the 10-county region of Northeast Georgia. By safety net provider, what I mean is that we provide services to individuals that are struggling with mental illness, substance abuse, and or developmental disabilities. Being a safety net provider means that we target and we work with individuals who have lost the majority of their supports. They've burned all their bridges. 98% of our population we work with fall below the poverty line, are uninsured or underinsured, and have reached their bottom, lost all of their supports. So what we do as a community service board, as a provider of behavioral health services, is provide supports, and that ranges from everything from housing stability to employment assistance to transportation assistance to life skills building, groups, therapy, recovery supports, in addition to the foundation that underlines all of our services being evidence-based treatment for behavioral health and addictive disease. Our proposal within the SPLOST process is to expand our housing capabilities for individuals that are, find themselves homeless and with a mental illness. Currently, among our continuum of housing programs, we operate close to 300 scattered units through a variety of programs across the 10-county region. Specifically for this process and this proposal, we operate 15 two-bedroom units in addition to an additional 3 two-bedroom units for our crisis respite program. What we the way that process works is that we have scattered sites basically throughout Athens-Clarke County. We work with multiple landlords. These guys are in a setting that is, we struggle to provide the supports that they need. We do have positive outcomes, but with this proposal, we would be able to construct an entire facility on our existing property. We just renovated and purchased 17 acres on Mitchell Bridge Road, which used to be the Clarke County School District administrative buildings. We have 17 acres that we are housed on, and we would be able to construct a 32-bedroom facility with this with the funds from this proposal. That would put us right next to our newly renovated and opened 24/7 crisis center and 30-bed behavioral health crisis center. And the way our continuum works for individuals who find themselves in a situation needing our help is that we have partnerships with the police department, the emergency rooms, and the hospitals to divert these guys that are going into in and out of the jail, in and out of the booking process, in and out of the emergency rooms, and into our treatment facility. And so we would be able to have a continuum to where we could relocate them out of the public system into the treatment that they need and provide a level of support for up to 18 months, and then transition them into a permanent supportive housing process that would allow them to reintegrate into the community, build the life skills, and build the supports necessary in order to become productive members of society. On a personal note, I would like to say I got into this whole process by volunteering at the Athens Area Homeless Shelter back in 1998. And I was blessed to be born into a middle-class family and had certain opinions and certain beliefs about the homeless population until I was able to volunteer and met some of these guys and realized that throughout my life, I made a lot of the same mistakes as these guys did. But I had support. I had parents. I had opportunities to correct the mistakes, the many mistakes that I made. Many of the people that we work with do not have that support. We're never born with that support or lost that support. But what we can do as a community service board, and through the partnerships that we've been able to establish, is turn that light back on for a lot of these guys, get them back into a place where they start to believe in themselves once again, and then become that productive member that they used to be. So that's pretty much my spiel.
Thanks.
My name is Shannon Wilder, and I served as the chair for the Citizens Advisory Committee for SPLOST 2020. This is a 22-member group of citizens that were appointed by the Mayor and Commission. And we started working together back in November, looking at what was originally 88 projects that were submitted both by county departments as well as citizen groups. And it was our charge to actually review and to make recommendations to the Mayor and Commission on potential SPLOST projects that could become part of the SPLOST 2020 package that you now see before you. I know we have a number of members here tonight. If you were a CAC member, could you kind of raise your hand? We also have Marilyn and Carl, who will introduce themselves to you, but this was a great, wonderful, diverse group of people to work with. We had lots of really interesting discussions, and we worked really hard because the 88 projects in a very short amount of time to try to, all of them are, I would say, very complex projects. So I think I can speak for everyone that we all learned a lot about this community, and not only the creativity of citizens in this community who have promoted these projects, but the needs in our community and the vision that I think many share about what our community should look like in the next 10 to 11 years. So I'm happy to answer questions about the process, as well as what we went through to come up with our recommendations, as well as once we actually put forward recommendations, the Mayor and Commission then had a lot of work to do to put together the final SPLOST package. And I will say I was really pleased with how much they listened to the citizens who were so deeply involved in this process. I think the SPLOST 2020 is a reflection of that. It's also a reflection of how different this community is from those actually most communities in our state who actually do not allow much citizen input at all when it comes to putting together SPLOST packages. So we should be, I think, very proud of that input that we've had to have. And that continues. Even after, hopefully, SPLOST 2020 is passed, November 5th, there will still be many opportunities for citizen input on the development of every single project. So that's something for all of you to think about.
Thank you, Shannon. As she said, my name is Carl Blount. I'm a member of the Citizens Action Committee, and I want to thank you, first of all, for hosting us this evening. As again Shannon mentioned, I'm one of the 22 members of the committee, and I'm currently acting as treasurer, so I think it's apropos for me to say something that I was not aware of, and I think a lot of us were not aware of until we got in this process. And you may have been wondering this, why do we ask for donations? Why are we here? You know, how did we get to this point in the process? We do that because once people like Commissioner Denson in the back say, here's the list, this is what we want to put forward to the voters, government of Athens-Clarke County is out. By law, they cannot be involved any further in the process. They cannot support the process, be against it, raise money for it, provide funds for it. We had issues even going into government buildings to hold all meetings. It's that much of a line of delineation that must be established between the county and our organization. So we have to essentially run this like an election, like we were an individual. That's why we have to solicit donations. We have to do things like this and focus on educating the population of the county about the SPLOST list and hopefully making you realize this is something that we think is important for the community. On a personal level, I've been honored to be a part of this. It is fascinating going through this. As much as you may not believe it's true, it really was fascinating night after night to sit in there and listen to all these various projects or proposed projects, because it's almost like looking into a crystal ball, because you see how this town is going to look if, God forbid, or God hope, SPLOST passes. You get to see what this town is going to look like in 11 years. A new library, addition to the Classic Center, updating of Bethel homes, and on and on and on and on. And the last thing I'll say is, even though I just fell into the trap, don't think this is just 3 to 5 projects. There are 37 projects on this list. There are 37 projects. Some of them are very, very interesting. Some of them are not exactly the sexiest ones in the world. But they are all going to have a profound impact on this community. And thank y'all all very much for coming out tonight, trying to educate yourself about this project.
Good evening, I'm Charlie Gloudennis. I'm with the Athens Housing Authority, and I'm here to talk about the sexiest project on the list, which is the Affordable Housing Project. And as many of you know, it was sort of a semi-secretive thing for a long time, and the reason is because of a property acquisition. Bethel was built in the 70s. It was refinanced in 2001. The refinancing involves a 15-year affordability period, which burned off last year, which meant the property would come up for sale. The commissioners approached the Housing Authority, and we've been working with 2 partners, Columbia Residential, who helped us with Columbia Brookside, and the Jonathan Rose Group, which is out of New York City. The commission asked us to do some very, very conceptual ideas, what could happen with Bethel in the North Downtown area. And we were working on this about a year ago. And the mayor and commission were very interested in doing a SPLOST project to try to transform this whole area. The problem is, Russell owned Bethel. Well, much to our surprise, in March, Bethel put the property up for sale with a very short fuse. And the Housing Authority, Columbia, and Rose have all put our funds together, and we're able to get a contract on the property. We still do not own the property, but we have a contract on it. We hope to close in January or February. So a lot of the secret to it is we really were not able to say anything about it until last month when our due diligence period ran out. So a lot of people have been wondering, public, what was so secret? And that's what was secret. And we still do not own the property, okay? Assuming, well, let me back up. When we buy the property, one of two things will happen. If SPLOST does not pass, since we own the property, we have got to renovate it and maintain those 190 units as affordable Section 8 housing. If SPLOST hopefully does pass, we'll be able to totally transform the Bethel property. And we will go to more of a Brookside, and it's not the Brookside model, but the concept of a 3-tier affordability, where you have the Section 8, then a little higher workforce housing with tax credits and market rate, all on the same development. So that's our concept for the property. We would maintain at least 190 high subsidy units, and then probably end up with upwards of 600 total units on the property, totally new, redeveloped. Now, in order to do this, where SPLOST comes in, using tax credits will not pay for any of the infrastructure for the project. A project of this magnitude will require us to take all the roads out, build new roads, sidewalks, public utilities, water, sewer, storm, all new. That on Brookside, for instance, was $10 million of the $60 million we spent there. So we need the SPLOST money for that and to make this happen. The other thing is, if as we do Bethel, that opens up the surrounding area to use the infrastructure money to help the surrounding area and develop it well. So we're really looking forward to this project and hope you'll be supportive.
Good evening. I'm Marilyn Wolf-Ragatz, and I believe I'm on, well, I don't believe I'm on, I am a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, but I think I was probably asked to be on that because I'm very supportive of and involved in the arts in the community. And of course, I think that those touch every aspect of our living and the way we approach living. Let me say that working with these 22 representatives of our community was utterly fascinating. It's hard to get 22 people talking civilly, reaching similar goals that will benefit the community. 88 projects was a lot of projects to look at, and I can tell you, 37 good projects are on the list, but there were others that were absolutely wonderful. And the community was participating by making proposals, lots of those proposals. And if you are any part of a group in town and you believe something is needed, gather together and fight for it, because this is one of the opportunities you have to advance the good of our community through whatever organization you're part of. So we did spend a lot of time in the beginning looking at what are the most important goals for our community that we can all agree on. Those were things that helped us make decisions along the way in selecting the final projects. So it's a fascinating process. We all felt very privileged to be part of it, and we're thrilled that you're here tonight to be with us. Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Danny Bryant. I'm the Director of Arena and Ancillary Services at the Classic Center. We have a proposal for partial funding for a future Classic Center expansion of an arena. And before the question gets asked, yes, I also am Buddy the Elf at the annual Breakfast of Santa and have pranced around all of downtown as Buddy the Elf. So get that out of the way up front.
All right, well, thank you all. I think that we got several questions here that the Federation of Neighborhoods Board talked about, and so I'll ask a few questions of the whole panel, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. And usually when I do take questions from the audience, I like to a couple of just basic rules, which is that, you know, it should be in the form of a question, your question, and that can be really hard, especially at events like this, where we all have ideas and opinions and things we want to share. And then also just, I'll try to go around to as many people as possible. So I'll try to limit it to just one question per person at first until it seems like everyone's had a chance to ask whatever they wanted to ask. Okay, so back to the panel. I was thinking that what is your sense, I guess this could be for some of you that are involved directly with projects, but maybe also from people who've been on the Citizens Council, as to what really is the plan B if SPLOST 2020 isn't passed here in November on November 5th. What happens with some of these projects? So would this, and what happens with SPLOST? Will SPLOST come back? Will a new citizens committee be formed and that be readdressed? Or are there ways that maybe some of these things might find other channels or funding? And there certainly are a mix of things on this list, right? There's things like the Classic Center Arena, which sounds great. There's things like sidewalks and public access to increase public safety. And there's things like fire equipment, which sounds important, right? And so for public safety. So just some impressions, and you don't have to go down the line, just whoever wants to chime in. Or you can go down the line, whatever you want.
Well, I think your assessment is correct. There's a real interesting mixture of projects on this, in this package, and there are some things that are very much these sort of vision projects or things that we would really like to see happen in our community. And then there are others that are very necessary to, I think, maintaining the quality of life that we enjoy in Athens-Clarke County. And I think one in particular, the E911 system upgrade, I think most of us would probably agree that it's a very important, just baseline type of project, as well as some of the fire equipment, public safety vehicle replacement. And so there are things that will have to happen. I mean, there's also something like live stream replacement, which I believe we had, a water line break this year that cost the county, what was it, $1 million to fix. It's really important that we have that funding as part of SPLOST 2020 so that we can actually use it to leverage other funds and to also take some of the burden off the general fund. One of the things we learned a lot about on the Citizens Advisory Committee was how the county budget operates, and SPLOST is actually a really important part of that. And if it is not reaffirmed, there will probably have to be some really hard decisions made. My understanding is it would come back up again, that we would try again, I think, the next year. I don't know who would chair that committee. It will not be me. But I hope that we're not in that position on November 6th, because we certainly would be, I think, missing out on some very valuable and important things. I think even though there are projects on there that are things that we don't necessarily have to function in our community. I mean, that wasn't actually, part of the criteria that we were asked to consider was, much more beyond even just the basic functioning of our county government. I mean, the three big areas that we were asked to look at were things like environmental protection, economic development, prosperity, and social well-being. And those are all things that I think all of us probably in this room care deeply about. So many of the projects that are on this list tap into either one or more of those areas, and I think can help to make Athens an even better place to not only live, but visit and do business in.
Given how many evenings I left my wife at home with our children, if we lose today, after the loss, I probably haven't found a new wife, so that's what I'll be doing. But I'll say that it's the SPLOST. There's an old quote about democracy that's well worn, and democracy is the worst form of government except everything else we've ever tried. And there's a lot on this SPLOST. There's some things that most people like, and some things that most folks don't like. But overall, I think we all agree, people that were part of the community, that it is a very good list of projects that are going to do a lot of good overall for this community. And, you know, are there some things on the project list that I don't necessarily care for? Maybe one or two, but I think overall it is a wonderful program for the county and for the citizens of Athens-Clarke County as a whole.
I was going to say, I know Charlie kind of mentioned a little earlier, like what, you know, how one might go forward with the Bethel Homes project, you know, with or without SPLOST.
Yeah, ours is pretty simple. If SPLOST does not pass, Bethel Homes will still be Bethel Homes. We will do gut rehab, landscape it, fix it up best we can, but it will still be in the same basic form it is now. So that's a pretty, plus we're right now the earmark 39 million for the Bethel project. There's another, I think, 6 million out there for other possible projects.
So yeah, I guess maybe hear a little more from Evan.
I'd like to add, I'm not sure about the knowledge base in this room, so I'm going to throw some statistics at you guys. I moved to Athens in '94 and fell in love with this town. It's magical. It has an amazing downtown. It has an amazing bus system. You look at, you know, what Athens brings to the 10-county, you know, region of Northeast Georgia. We've got jobs, we've got a vibrant downtown. There's so many things going on. We've got the University of Georgia. God bless those Georgia Bulldogs. Oh, Lord, bless those Georgia Bulldogs. But when you think about Athens, many people don't have the opportunity to see the relative underbelly of Athens. You know, we've got all of these great things going on, but we are also the 7th poorest county in the state of Georgia out of 159 counties. We have over 30% poverty rate among Athens citizens. And ironically enough, we have an incredibly low unemployment rate. Now, what does that tell you when you think about Athens citizens? You've got a lot of poor people working, trying to get through, and trying to address those barriers that many of us may take for granted. Now, what will happen if, you know, this isn't funded and our proposal isn't funded? You know, many of you guys may become familiar with some of those guys that are downtown, some of those guys flying signs, some of the homeless camps, the shelters that are out there. What this proposal can do, I'll tell you right now, in Athens-Clarke County, our beds are at max. Our shelter capacity is full. Our permanent supportive housing programs are full. We have an amazing waiting list through, you know, working with Salvation Army, Bigger Vision Homeless Shelter, the Athens Area Homeless Shelter, all of these organizations that we work really incredibly well with, but the need does not meet the capacity to provide these services. And a lot of these individuals are out there, and a lot of them are working. And if you think about it, next time you might be at the grocery store, so, you know, the person bagging your groceries, in the chicken plants, the person that prepared the chicken that you're cooking for dinner, the person changing the oil in your car, all of this variety of things. Some of them may be homeless, some of them may be someone who's struggling. And if you think about the services and the supports that are out there in the community, you know, there's an adage out there that you throw a rock, you're going to hit a nonprofit in Athens-Clarke County. Well, that's very true. We are very service heavy. We do a very good job of communicating and coordinating with, you know, each other and all of these services that we provide. But housing is the foundation of that. And the services are not nearly as impactful if someone is not in a stable living situation, a stable housing situation. And what this proposal can do is put them into a stable housing situation where they can be that much more responsive and the services can be that much more impactful, and the coordination of those services with all of our providers can do that. And we have this amazing opportunity where we have this property, 17 acres, and we can, you know, construct on this property, and all the infrastructure is there. the contracts that we currently operate right now go to pay for rent and utilities, and those rents are rising, the fees are rising, the coordination between the property management and our services can sometimes create gaps in the programs. Being able to develop a facility where we have a level of site control over this process will make our services that much more impactful, and at the same time make a much larger impact on the individuals that we're serving. We could potentially double our current service capacity, get some of these people off of the streets into a stable housing situation, and get them back into the community with renewed vigor and a renewed life. If we do not get this, things will pretty much remain the way they are. We're continuing to look at other options, but this is a very unique option where we'll be able to make an impact relatively immediately versus with the other options is finding other federal funds or other state funds and piecing it together here and there. So.
I think to piggyback off that, I mean, where we come into the Classic Center, I think we're not going to solve poverty at our building, but we're going to do our best to create those opportunities. And you know, we have a program called Bread for Life that right now I got to teach a class today. It's 5 new students coming through the program, and they're folks that again have no support system, need a second chance, and we think that the difference between being able to move out of poverty is education. I think we have a lot of opportunities in this city for service industry jobs and hospitality jobs, and there is a pathway out of that, but you have to be educated. You have to have that opportunity, and somebody has to give you that. And what the arena provides, you know, is 600 jobs, and you know, over a third of those are going to be directly tied to the Classic Center. If you know or not, we're committed to paying a living wage that's tied to the MIT calculator for that. So sure, it's $11.58 now, and in 3 years when the arena opens, it's going to be higher than that. And that's just the entry level, and that bumps everything up. And that doesn't change what the whole city does, obviously, but it does make an impact on those jobs and those people who come in, and then they have opportunities to grow. And I think, you know, if the SPLOST doesn't pass, I mean, it's just opportunities that we're delaying, you know, down the line. If we want to see a change in our community, that's the way that we can play our part.
What are some of the other economic aspects of SPLOST 2020 that you think how it would impact the community as a whole, that you think might be essentially an investment into, that we'll see some return on that, or are there even just some aspects about SPLOST itself that people might like to understand a little bit more about, with where is that money being drawn from, right? Is that money coming from our citizens? Is it coming from visitors? Where, you know, kind of break down a little bit what our sales tax collection is, if anybody knows. If you don't, that's fine. I noticed there's lots of really pretty graphs on the website. So I recommend the website to anybody who likes to look at graphs. So, but it is, looking here for it. It's votesplost2020.org. And then there's also still some information about the programs available on the SPLOST 2020 site that's at the county. So
we hear it over and over and over again in this town, but I mean, it bears repeating. We're the smallest geographic county in the state of Georgia. You have this enormous amount of people that come into this county in the form of the students going to the University of Georgia. You have enormous numbers of people coming in here for alone football games, not counting all the myriad of other things that go on in this county, one of which that gets bigger and bigger every year are the conventions that are being held at the Classic Center. And it's my understanding that y'all are bursting at the seams at this point in terms of the number of people that you can have, and I'll let you speak more to that. So just that alone is, and all these people that come into our community and use our services, the SPLOST is how we get them to pay for it. That's how we get them to pay for the roads, the infrastructure, the sewer system, police officers, just on and on and on. That is one of the best ways to get them to contribute financially to this community.
It's okay.
I mean, there was I don't know who saw it, but there's a great video that went out today that really summarized this as well. But I think roughly 50% of SPLOST is paid, from outside of the county and folks who, like Carl said, the students who are living here 8 months out of the year, but don't have to pay property tax. And I don't know if people are afraid to say it, but I think that's the alternative for these projects that don't get funded, that are requirements for our city, is that we'll probably see an increase in property tax. And I don't think that's a scare tactic. I think that's just the honest truth. Is that we're very lucky to have a SPLOST that does support us and does support this community. And I think there's things that rely on that.
So there is a video was released recently that the Athens Politics Nerd put out. So if you Google Athens Politics Nerd, it's a little one person's summary from that blog website that monitors Athens politics locally. So take a look and see what those thoughts and opinions were. But clearly, it got a shout out here from one of our panelists at least. So take a look at it. I'm going to open it up now for questions, and we can questions can be for any one of our members here, or it can be a more general question about things going on. So,
Can I just add?
Yes,
There are
go
people
ahead.
in the audience who represent some of the projects that are on the list who may be able to answer a specific question better than one of us up here. So, and there are some other, as Shannon said, some other people from the Citizens Committee that
Sure.
might be able to answer as well.
Okay. Yes.
Hi. I'm concerned about affordable housing in Athens-Clarke County. I don't know how, I've been going to meetings for the past 4 or 5 years. The comprehensive plan, the workforce housing study. Workforce housing study showed us for sure that the incomes are stable, housing prices are skyrocketing. Comprehensive plans for 1998 and 2008 and 2018 all have affordable housing or affordable housing as their goal. I don't see any of it really happening, and I'm concerned now that this $44.5 million is only going towards the Bethel or what's it called, the other one, Brookside. I mean, isn't that money going to other affordable housing projects in Athens?
Yes. A part of the 45 million is going to go to the Bethel project. The Columbia you mentioned, Brookside's already done.
Right.
That's not involved with it. But some of that money will go to the Bethel project specifically in the North Downtown area. Some of that money will actually get recycled back when some of the flag lots are sold off. I don't want to get into that because it's a little complicated. But the point is, more of that money will get recycled to do other projects that have not been designated yet. And that's not in my wheelhouse. I only do Bethel.
Thank you.
Yep.
My question's for Dan in particular. My name's Mary Salter, and I'm with the group 100% Athens Renewable Energy Initiative. And I'm specifically interested with this project, if SPLOST passes, which I have all confidence that it will. If the Classic Center would commit to doing a carbon offset or doing a carbon study and the carbon impact of not just the build of the arena, but the lifetime of the arena, the carbon impact it has. And I'd be specifically interested in taking that information and doing a local carbon offset, which would just, again, like SPLOST, be putting money and good things back into the community. It's kind of a question.
I certainly, I can answer the parts that I can answer, if that makes sense. I'd certainly have to educate myself probably more on what that all entails. But I believe every project, and ours certainly would be, but every project, every building has to be LEED certified. It's built in a SPLOST. And also, I think it's something that we just did a full energy renewal project at our facility. We actually were able to replace our 25-year-old chiller in our theater when basically at no cost to us, but the savings that we're going to be able to have moving forward. We switched every light in our building over to LED, things like that. I mean, obviously, a building with a footprint the size of ours is going to have an impact. We've also recently added solar panels that are running portions of our facility as well. So I think those are all things as we move forward and with building, and there's no finalized design. There's no those are things. Of course, as we move forward, we want to see what's the most efficient way to run facilities. I mean, it's amazing across the country and across the world what they're able to do now with these public assembly facilities, how they can complement their communities rather than be a burden on them.
One follow-up, and I do appreciate this is maybe outside of what you look at, and efficiencies are very important for building and all future things. And LEED certified is a great example of a kind of built-in efficiency. But what we're talking about is everything built has an impact on the community, just like the projects in SPLOST have an impact on the community. And so it is something that is beyond LEED certification. It's not about efficiency, it's understanding the entire impact it has on the community. And then making sure that you make that whole, offsetting it.
Sure, and again, I think that's probably something to have a future conversation about. I think it's certainly welcome sitting down at the same table and talking about that, because I can only answer what I know, are steps that we're already prepared to take. But of course, whatever, I think we proved throughout the process of getting on this project list of our willingness and our ability to work with the community and surrounding partners to make this something that works for everyone.
Yes.
Once these budgeted projects that have made it to the list, these 37, assuming SPLOST 2020 passes, are these projects and their budgets cemented at that point, or can these monies be moved around? Can they be changed, or once the voters have spoken, is that it? And my follow-up to that is, if one of these projects goes over budget, what happens? Is SPLOST then affected by that?
I can tell you that whatever is written in a project and approved stays that way. There will be some that come under budget, and the money may be moved to one that goes over budget. But that's very carefully done. That's not quickly like let's move the money around. You pretty much, once you've written a proposal and it's passed, that is what you do. You try to stick with the budget as much as possible, but in some cases it might be a little more, in some cases a little less. So under very careful process, that money might be used to balance each other out.
Just a quick follow-up to that. There's a debt service element to this latest list. How does that come about if these projects are supposedly funded as you go with sales tax?
There has to be correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be a bond issuance associated with this by law.
If it's over a certain amount or a certain time period, it's required to have bond.
So that's why that's in there.
And that was the case with the most recent SPLOST, I believe, too. Yes.
Yeah, and there are some benefits to that. We are, given the current interest rates, we can actually take advantage of that right now, whereas in 10 years, we don't know where we might sit. So, but yes, I think the law does require that we do that for a certain amount.
So we're essentially front-end loading the project, is what you're saying?
Not all of them, no. Not even close to all of them, but I think the larger project. Plus, then that way we can go ahead and start on some of them. But SPLOST is pay as you go. So, we will have to, that's part of the reason why the debt service is actually built into the SPLOST package, is that we are paying that as we go as well.
Yes.
So my question is for the committee members primarily. The arena is basically being talked about as an economic development project, it sounds like. Assuming it's a good idea to spend, $30 million on economic development instead of, say, I don't know, transportation or any number of other priorities, why does the committee feel like it's a good idea to put so much of our economic money, all of our eggs in one basket on one mega project?
Well, this is a $314 million SPLOST. So I don't know that I would characterize it as putting our eggs in one. It's not actually the highest cost project on the list. It's actually half the cost of the highest cost project, which is the space modernization project. But I think looking at the package as a whole is probably a more important way to kind of conceptualize how the money is being allocated. That's the question we get a lot, is there people are like, can I just vote for this project and not that project? And that's not really how SPLOST works. It's an all or nothing. And so all of this package kind of works together and holds together as a package. And so, I mean, 35 million versus 314 million, I'm not sure that I would characterize it as, it's not even a huge, what is that, 10% of the SPLOST. There's a lot of projects that are, we haven't talked about tonight, that are really important ones that go into lots of different social and environmental amenities in this community, and things that will actually improve even the efficiency of how our government spends its money. So there's projects on the list that will even offset the money that is being spent in the general fund, so we'll be saving some money in certain areas too.
You could make the argument almost that everything is part of SPLOST or part of this SPLOST in economic development. So many of the things that we're doing here, and not every single one of them, is making Athens a more livable place, a place that people want to come to either do business or live. As far as, I can't think of any project we went over of the 88 that had a more tangible economic benefit than the addition to the Classic Center. As far as finding something else that could provide an economic stimulus, like I've already said, they're all going to do that to some degree. The Classic Center is going to be the most direct and easily, I'm trying to think, it's been a long Monday. The best way to figure out how you're going to contribute economically to the county as a whole is going to be through the Classic Center.
Other questions? Yes.
I have a question. This final list of 37 projects is quite different than the first list the committee put out, which did not include the Classic Center. How did the process go between the 22 you all submitted first and the 37?
When the committee looks at the projects, we are given the proposed budget. We may not always have agreed on what that budget should realistically be. We might have thought, we think you could do that for less. But we were given that budget, the proposed budget. So when we selected our initial list, we worked with the amount that was given in the proposal. We also wrote along with that when we offered our list. We really like this project. We think it's good, but we don't think perhaps it needs to be quite that much money. Or maybe we think a little more should be added. Just a recommendation, because we can't make that change. Once it goes to the mayor and commission, they are able to look and manipulate that money a little bit more. So that they were able, and I have to tell you this, they did a miraculous job of evaluating the list we gave them, looking very realistically and in depth at each project to see, could we spend a little less? Do we need to spend a little more? Could we do this extra one that wasn't on the list? Will that have benefits? Would that pair up well with another project that was selected? They really, really, really worked to increase that initial list we gave them, our recommendations. and to bring in more projects and to do everything, I think, with a more realistic budget for each of the proposals. So that's how they were able to add some projects to our list. They didn't cut any of ours, but they were able to add some.
I do want to mention that the way our process worked is that we actually had two lists. We had a draft list and then a candidate list of projects. So that was our final. And the Classic Center was on our draft original list. That list actually was 122% of the SPLOST because we could do up to 150% for that first list. And then after that was submitted, the Mayor and Commission pre-designated two projects, affordable housing and the space modernization. So that sort of cut the funding that we had to work with going forward. And so I think one of the things that I was really pleased with is once we put in our final list to the Mayor and Commission, our recommendations, they actually went back to our original draft and looked at quite a few of the things that were on there and found ways to cut and to add some of those back. So the Classic Center was not the only project that was added back to the SPLOST package, but it was originally on our draft list.
Other questions? Okay, I'll let you ask another one.
Thank you. I just am still concerned about the affordable housing. I'm looking at the different, things here, the little pie chart of where the different funds are going to go to. And it seems to me that it's a no-brainer that we need more affordable housing in Athens. And okay, the Bethel housing, that's a big project, I guess, but it just seems to me that it shouldn't be the bulk of that 44.5 million. People are being priced out of Athens. People that have lived here long-term are having to move out of Athens. They don't want to, but they can't afford to live here anymore. Landlords are jacking up the rents incredibly. Local merchants can't afford their rent of their shops downtown. They're having to leave. It's a big problem, and I'm sorry, but cultural facilities, as much as I think that's a great idea, I think having places for people to live is a little bit more important than bringing people, wealthy, affluent people, into Athens to use the convention center. It just seems like there's priorities that are backwards here, in my opinion.
I think as far as affordable housing, we all feel that that's extremely important. As a matter of fact, if you look to Envision and the Envision program and the 14 committees, one is housing. And when originally Envision was being developed, everybody said that's priority housing. However, in our situation, we're dealing mainly with the proposals. I mean, I think there are lots of things out there, and I think Envision's working on it, and a number of other organizations are working on this. But in our case, we have to deal with the proposals we're given. And so if we seem to be limiting one project for affordable housing, it's only because this is what was proposed to us and what our committee had to evaluate. The county made a proposal for affordable housing to the SPLOST committee. And so that's the one affordable housing project that we as a group looked at and talked about and evaluated. So I think there's no doubt that this is an issue for our whole community, but as far as SPLOST projects go, there's no way we as a group can add another project. We work only with those that are written proposals and presented to us as a committee. Does that make sense?
When you say the county, you mean the mayor and commissioners?
Well, there are different departments in the county who can make proposals. And then there are community groups that can make proposals. And, pardon? As well as individuals, yes. And so that came to 88 proposals, which are the ones we evaluated. But in our responsibility was not to go beyond those proposed. It was to deal with those best we could.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We just had the ACC police department come down, and anyone that's parked in those spots right in front of us, they said they're gonna tow in like 2 minutes. So I don't know if anyone's parked there. I just wanted to give y'all a heads up that you might want to. Yeah, just right in front of us. Those like the weird metered spaces by bike lanes. We just wanted to get like.
Okay, let's give some love to Cine for looking out for your being towed. Yay, thank you. Okay, if you need to run out and move your car quickly, go do that. Hopefully that's none of our panelists, and should be okay. All right, it's probably some people stuck in movies, so it's going to be extra sad for them when they come out. But anyway, and maybe Francis, I can't tell. You need to move your car? You're good? Okay. And I think that there is a lot of, I was impressed with the information that's on the website for the Vote Yes, SPLOST group. And if you look at it in color, it's much prettier. But both the pie chart is really nice, I think, for getting at some of the issues you were talking about earlier as far as how, kind of which areas the money is broken down into. But there is also a nice FAQ which answered many of my questions, and so hopefully it might address some of your lingering ones that you might have after this evening that you might go home with. But there are a couple on here that do address the affordable housing issue and some of the plans for that. So. And I think that one thing that, and Charlie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the idea with the Bethel Homes project is that it's not, that it really is a re-envisioning and imagining the property, but it's also an increase in number of units, correct?
Correct.
So what's the current number of units versus what this might be?
There's 190 units there now. Our concept, again, these are just rough numbers, is to end up with about 600 in the affordable mixed income. But then this would also be an anchor for improving that entire area down there, several blocks around it. Yeah, as mentioned, Bethel right now has about 40, they're about 40% vacant.
Yes?
Curious, can you talk a little bit about the transition period for people who live there now?
Again, that'll depend on which way we go. Assuming the SPLOST does not pass, those people will stay there and we'll renovate the apartments. We'll move them into vacant apartments, renovate buildings and move them back. It's yet to be seen depending on the engineering we do. It's a difficult site because it goes up and down and all around it. So it'll involve a lot more engineering than say a flat site would. So either we'll consolidate in part of the development, the people who live there now, demolish and rebuild new and move them in, or we may have to move them off-site. Now, if they move off-site, they will have a voucher that's actually tied to the Bethel project. So they'll leave and come back to Bethel. So nobody will be displaced from the project. And the other thing, the question keeps coming asked, their rent will not go up because they're on income-based rents. So the rent won't go up. If they do need to move and relocate for any reason, under the Uniform Relocation Act, we have to pay all their bills. Hookups, application fees, moving fees, everything.
You said it has capacity to absorb that amount of people that move. Sort of meeting capacity of that many people having to move at once. Whether or not there are any studies, whether or not there's a place to go.
Well, we did the same thing with the old Jack R. Wells or Paldo, as most people knew it. And I mean, you don't move them all in one day. No, it's a process. We did Paldo over about a 5-month process, and every single family will be individually counseled on what their options are, find them a place to go, and help them move. So we did go through this with the whole Jack R. Wells, and like I said, they will not be out any money, and their rent will not increase.
It's also worth pointing out too, if I'm not mistaken, that my children were at Barrow Elementary, Bethel is zoned to Barrow. Those children will not be going to another school. they will go to Barrow the entire time if it passes, so they will not have to suffer through the dislocation of going to a new elementary school.
Other questions? What? Oh, my favorite question asker in the back, yes?
Well, I was going to have a question. I want this, we got like the whole 20 minutes. So I guess for you all, especially the ones on the committee, I feel like y'all said we need to talk about the same big ones over and over again. But I have to imagine that y'all each have kind of like a favorite one, a smaller one maybe, that's not quite as talked about. So I wonder if y'all can talk about like, obviously like I can guess what Evan's favorite one is, like I can guess what Danny's favorite one is. But and probably Charlie. But the rest of y'all, like a smaller one that's not getting as much attention that you guys would like to highlight.
I'm super excited about the East Side Library. I've lived on the East Side my entire Athens life, and I'm very, very excited about that.
I'm going to say I'm excited about the Jackson Street Art Walk. I just think the potential for that and the way that's designed is going to be fabulous, and I think that other sections of the street and parts of town will follow. It's going to be such a wonderful central community area for everyone, and a place to bring the community together.
He only has one favorite.
Sustainability, eco-friendly, however you want to put it, besides the fact that it has a obvious large impact on the environment, it's also come of age in terms of the economics of it. It just makes economic sense now to go towards solar, wind, and other sustainable sources of energy. So the one that I'm most excited about, that's not talked about as much, is that I cannot remember the exact name. The Sustainability Initiative. It's going to save the county approximately $1 million a year, and it's one of the biggest drivers for keeping the overall cost of the county on an annual basis down. Because that was another thing we haven't talked about that tonight. We can't bankrupt the county with all these wonderful projects. Somebody's got to pay for these things going forward. So we had to keep that below $4 million a year. And what did we come up, what was the final value for that?
15.8 million.
Well, I'm sorry, in terms of the overall impact on the budget annually.
1.2.
Yeah, $1.2 million. Yeah, for all 37 of these projects on an annualized basis, and $1 million of that is help being paid for by that project. So I would love that particular project.
Well, there's so many that I'm really excited about. I mentioned it earlier, but I love the live stream pipe replay. I'm a nerd. I just really like that project. I think it makes a lot of practical sense. I wish we could have put more money towards it. I think it's really important. I think part of this, I actually lived in the part of the world when I was a child that did not have clean water. And to me, that is like a central thing that we need to think about in our community. So that's my favorite project.
So what about the kids, the Holland Sports Youth Complex? I mean, how do you say no to kids and, the community where it's at, giving these guys, these families, these options, these alternatives, and just living their life? How do you say no to kids? I mean, honestly, seriously, how do you say no? Anybody? I mean, how do you?
And the side.
No, this is a serious question. Come on. But no, seriously, that's my favorite. I mean, outside of the one that I'm trying to get through this whole process.
I have favorites, but you probably don't want to hear about them. So, okay, question.
I was looking over the list of projects on the brochure, and I noticed that the final item on the list is the Town of Bogart projects. I was curious about that because if my understanding is correct, Bogart straddles the county line. So how would that process work? Would the SPLOST funding go only to the portion of Bogart that's in Clarke County?
You want me to answer that? Okay. Winterville is totally in Clarke County. And they figure the amount that goes to Bogart based on how many people are in the Clarke County part of Bogart. That's how that number is figured.
The project can include those in Bogart outside
Yes, but the money allocation is strictly based on how many people are actually in the Clarke County part of Bogart.
All right, other questions? Okay. I want to ask each of you, I would like to have it toward the end here to have a little bit of a charge. Like, okay, so there's a room full of people here. Everybody's going to go out and live their lives tomorrow. And what do you want these people to tell their friends, family, neighbors, coworkers about SPLOST 2020? I'm assuming you want them to vote for it, but beyond that, what gets them to go to the polls then? So, or what's the takeaway you want each of these people to have? Is there some special, nice factoid about SPLOST 2020 that you think seals the deal, or just an impassioned plea for the county? Whatever you want. What do you want these people to tell folks tomorrow? Everyone's going to see people tomorrow.
Just real quick, this is an opportunity to provide opportunities to people who don't have opportunities. To, look at yourself in the mirror. Think of all the opportunities that you've had in your entire life. Think of the marginalized populations that we live side by side with in this community. And this is your opportunity to help us provide opportunities for those people who don't have the opportunities that we've been blessed with.
Well, I think a lot of times we are always very reactionary and we don't get to really be deliberative and think about the future of our community. And to me, what's exciting about SPLOST is that that's exactly what we get to do, because we're going to be working on and thinking about and building something together for the next decade. And to me, that's what I would charge you all to think about, is taking the long view of how we can really improve and strengthen our community and continue to make it a creative and wonderful place.
The people in this room are here because they care. You care about this community. You care about your projects if you're one of the people that were pushing the project. There are probably 100 people you know at least that for these kind of things call you, talk to you at a party, and whether or not they're going to admit it, they're going to do what you say they should do. So what about this SPLOST thing? Is this a good idea, or what's the deal? I just hope, obviously, that you can vote for it and you yourself vote for it, but I hope that you just educate as many people as you can about this process. Because and we joke about it, it amazes me, some of the things people will say to me about this SPLOST. Oh yeah, that money that's going to the Classic Center, what are they just going to build another parking deck, is that right? No! Who told you that? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Just go out there and please educate the community as a whole about this process. Let them form their own opinions. I'm not saying get in a fight with somebody who's against it, but that is the biggest thing that you could do to help all of us up here who are passionate about this.
I think it's a matter of either moving forward or not moving at all. And I'm glad you mentioned the East Side Library, because I moved here in '91, and I lived at University Gardens when they were building the library on the west side. And that's the most incredibly useful and used facility in this town. And the East Side being neglected all these years is just amazing. So by voting for this, 20 years from now, people are going to be, man, I'm glad they built that library.
I would say everybody has one or two projects they're not too excited about. And I've heard people talk about one project they don't like and then act as though they're not going to vote at all, or they're going to vote no because of one project. Tell your friends that if we don't get a yes on SPLOST, we're losing $311 million worth of really, really important projects in our community. To not like one and be against the whole thing is really a tragedy. So if you can get them out to vote and understand that the big picture is this is very, very beneficial to everyone in this community. Every single person in this community will be benefited.
I think my message is just get out and vote. I mean, I think we've proven over the last however many years that it makes a difference whether you vote or don't vote. And I think this is a package that's been supported by a new mayor and commission that I think have really big visions for Athens that I imagine a lot of you in this room supported. And I think if you believe in them and vote and believe in the people you elected, that this is a vision that they share as well. And I think they have the best interest in the future of Athens in mind, and hopefully we all do. I mean, but I think tomorrow you can start voting, right? You can start voting tomorrow, today.
What is it? Tomorrow?
Next week, it's
I saw.
the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st, the 30th.
No, it starts the 15th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
It does.
15th. Early voting starts the 15th.
Downtown?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got all the info.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so get out and vote. I think that would be the biggest thing. There's nothing else on the ballot. And so I think getting out and voting is a huge thing.
There's, so early voting, it depends on who you ask, might start it today or yes, or tomorrow. But at this point, it's kind of moot about today anyway. So that is at the Board of Elections office downtown and runs through November 1st. Then, as Charles was mentioning, on the 30th, 31st, and the 1st, there will be early voting in several other locations around town. One finally on the east side of the river, so progress on that front. And there is a list on the county's Board of Elections site of all of those places, so you can see that. And then November 5th, Election Day at your local favorite polling place. Preferably the one you're assigned to be at. It's tricky, but you know, that's part of voting. So yes.
Can I be the one here to thank you for your service to our community? It's invaluable, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and thanks to all of our speakers. We just applauded for them, so we don't have to applaud again. But if you feel like it, you can. And like I said, there is a sample ballot online at the Board of Elections site. When you read this sample ballot, your eyes will glaze over, and weird things will jump out at you that'll make you go like, do we really need that? And then other things will be all vague, and you'll be like, what does environmental mitigation and restoration really mean? And so if you want to know more, I do recommend the website that has the links to each of the programs, especially if you have friends, family members, coworkers who want to know more about it. So thanks again, everyone, for coming out.
Just one last thing.
One last thing.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's all right.
For those who would like signs, there's signs in the back. If you support SPLOST and would like one, and those folks that want some, I just want to make sure you know they're there.
No, don't apologize. There's signs in the back. There's some literature from the SPLOST folks. So if you feel moved to take some to friends, families, neighbors, whatever, please do so. Put a sign up in your neighbor's yard. I don't know. So, however